Hello, welcome. My name is Noah Elkrief, and I'd like to tell you a little story about my journey and where I've been the last 5 years. As you may have known, I made a bunch of YouTube videos from 2012 to 2014 and also wrote a book called A Guide to the Present Moment. And since 2014, I haven't made any videos. So that's about 5 years now. And a lot of you have probably been wondering where I've been, what's been happening, what's going on. So I'm here today to share with you what's been going on, what's happening, and hopefully share some insights with you that might be helpful for your life. So basically, very broadly, I've been through really 3 big phases in my life. And those 3 phases are a false sense of confidence, fake confidence, then peace, and now self-worth. And I'd like to share a little bit about each of those phases so you get to know me better. I let you in on my world, and maybe you get to know yourself a little bit better. So when I was young, starting 11-ish or so, I was seemingly a very confident kid. I was happy, I was wild, I was having fun, I was rebelling. I was always popular in school, I always had friends, I played sports, I was smart, all of that. And so moving into high school and college, I thought I was the happiest guy in the world. I was really good at math. I thought I was so smart. I thought I was the smartest kid I ever met. I thought I was so cool. I thought I was the coolest kid I ever met, except one guy in college who I thought was cooler than me. And yeah, I thought I was the shit, I thought I was really the man and I could do anything. I thought I could do anything. I'm special, nothing can stop me. If someone would have asked me at that point in time if I had any insecurities or shames or anything like that, I would have said, "You're crazy." No, I had nothing at all. I really, really believed that I had no insecurities, no unworthinesses, no sense of inadequacy. I thought I was just great in basically every single way. And that went on until after college when I started working. I was in business. I worked at UBS, Goldman Sachs, and then at a strategy consulting firm in London. And I thought I was really good at everything. Everybody seemed to confirm it outside of me, whether that was performance reviews or IQ tests or coworkers, friends. Everything was just like, "You're smart, you're cool, you're amazing, you're great." And I believed it. And that is really what was my experience. It was what I knew at that time in my life. But at the same time, I was doing a lot of meditation. I had been raised meditating since I was born, and did a lot of different types of meditation practices basically every day of my life up until that point. And when I was 24, I was in England at a meditation retreat, and in one moment, the vast majority of my thoughts left my mind and didn't come back. Now, that might sound quite weird or strange or whatever it sounds like, and I don't really know how to explain it in a way that you can understand it. But it felt like my mind was always busy. I was always thinking about something, planning something in the future, thinking about something in the past, pre-planning conversations. I don't know, so many different types of thoughts. And after that moment, my mind was just basically always silent. And that had a really, really big impact on my life. I don't know how much to say about this, but I lost many, many ideas of good and bad, many, many ideas of right and wrong, many ideas about myself and my self-image. And as a result of losing so many thoughts, my mind became silent and very clear. So over the next couple of years, I saw thoughts pop into my mind. So it wasn't like it was the end of thoughts. Sometimes they were new thoughts that I never had before. And sometimes they were really deep unconscious thoughts that I hadn't been aware of and were coming to the surface. And when these new thoughts entered my mind, I had the great fortune of being able to see them clearly. So what that means is basically, normally when thoughts are going through our head, there's so many going on that we can't see any of them clearly. They're kind of overlapping, moving, not staying in one place. But in my head, when a thought comes up, there's only one thought there, and it just stops and is still, and it lets me look at it. I'm not in it, I'm looking at it. And I feel really grateful for that. It has been it has been such a gift, so amazing. Because when thoughts come in my head, they don't create suffering, basically ever. They don't create pain, they don't create contraction, they don't create negative emotions. I can just see it. And if one does create contraction, tension, pain, sadness, hurt, anything, I just instantly can look to my mind, see what thought is creating it. And once I see the thought that's creating it, I sort of instantaneously, automatically, obviously see why that thought isn't true. And then it dissolves from my mind along with the emotion that it created. And that was the subject of my book and my YouTube videos, where I helped people to discover that the thoughts that create their unwanted emotions aren't true, so that their unwanted emotions can just dissolve, go away instantly. And when I created all of that content, when I made those videos, when I wrote that book, I thought that was all there is. I thought I was basically done. I acknowledged that sometimes emotions would come up and thoughts would come up, but it was so rarely. I mean, like once every couple of weeks or once a week maybe. And it would just be for a moment, like seconds, and then it would go. So I felt very content, peaceful, fulfilled, silly, whole. This categorized my experience for about 5 years. From 2009 until 2014, I just lived with, peace is really the word. And also during that time, I recognized that during that first phase of my life where I thought I was great at everything and all of that, that I realized that I worried about people's opinions a lot before. And I had anxiety about what people thought of me, and I judged people constantly to be worse than me. But that all seemed to go away when I lost my thoughts. So it was kind of like I didn't know I had worries and judgments during that phase, that I was in it. But as soon as I lost so many of those thoughts, then I became aware that I used to have them. Yeah, that feels good. So that's where we left off, if you've seen any of my old content. But in the last 5 years, a lot has happened. And I would like to share with you some of it. I feel a little nervous sharing it. It is very different than what I've shared before, and yeah, I feel a little scared to share it, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. In 2014, in the beginning of 2014, I think it was January, I was working with a little girl. She was 5 years old, and I was playing with her. Her parents asked me to help her to feel less shy in speaking with new people. So we would just go to the park and play. It was a family friend. No serious talking, just playing. I would just go up to all sorts of different people and talk and be fun, and just to show her it was safe and enjoyable. And after a few times playing with her, she looks at me and she says, "Can I tell you something?" Very seriously, when there was no previous serious conversation. And I said, "Yes, you can tell me something." And she looks me in the eye and she says, "I hate myself." And instantly I felt this like, this massive heaviness on my chest. And I heard her and shared some things in response. And then maybe 20, 30 minutes later, I left. And on my way home, I noticed this heaviness on my chest. Massive heaviness on my chest. Tension in my chest. And this was very unusual for me. And so I looked to my head, I looked to my mind to see what thought was creating it, so that I could disbelieve it and come back to a state of peace and relaxation. But I couldn't find a thought. This was the first time that this happened. My mind was empty, it was silent, but yet I had heaviness, massive heaviness in my chest. And in that moment, I was terrified. I was really terrified of that heaviness in my chest. I was scared of it. And when I noticed I was scared of it, I had the great luck, you could say, that I wanted to see what would happen if I stopped running. So I noticed I was kind of pushing down a lid on it. I was really like unconsciously and semi-consciously like, no, I don't want to feel this. And so when I noticed that, I just had to lift off the lid. And when I lifted off the lid, I broke. I absolutely broke open. I went into the deepest cry that I ever had in my life. I was bawling, crying so hard. And in the midst of this cry, I didn't have any stories. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know what to call this emotion. I didn't have any thoughts about my experience. And I loved it. I loved this breaking open. It felt like the most beautiful experience in my life. It felt like love, like connection. It felt soft. It felt powerful. I don't even know how to describe it. But if you've broken open yourself, maybe you've experienced this. And in the next couple hours, I was reflecting on my experience. Like, I had dedicated my life from being a child to basically avoid negative emotions. That the basis of my life was how to never experience negative emotions. I even wrote a book about it. I even made videos about it. And I'm like, what the hell? This breaking open could have and would have been described as a negative emotion by most people. And if I had thoughts to name it something, I would have probably called it a negative emotion. So I decided very consciously in that moment, I want to discover what negative emotions really are. Like, I feel this massive commitment, like I want to feel everything. I want to feel all the negative emotions, or all the emotions that are classified as painful, negative, bad, all of that. Like, I really, really want to know, like, uncharted territory, first-hand exploration. Like, what are these things? What are these concepts of shame, sadness, hurt, anger, fear? What are they in my actual experience? Not like thoughts about it, not theory. And so from then on, I kind of invited in pain, emotion, negative emotion, whatever. And for the first year, it didn't go very well, in that not many emotions came up, like maybe once a week or something. And instead of going to my mind to find the thought that created it, I would try to see where the emotion is in my body and explore, what is it? How big is it? Is it heavy? Is it light? Does it feel dense? Is it moving? Like, what's happening? Really first-hand exploration of what is an emotion. And after a year, trying to get my story straight. So in the beginning, when an emotion came, I would just explore it in that moment. But after about a year, I started to ask the emotion, where did you come from? And it took me back. It took me back to different points in my life. At first, I started to be able to access college. So if I felt sad or hurt or down or afraid, and I asked, where did you come from? I could access a moment in college when I was insulted or left out or had an exam or something happened that I didn't like. And then over time, I could access high school, then middle school, then elementary school, and eventually my early childhood. And when I reached my early childhood, you can see I already have like tears in my eyes. When I reached my early childhood, everything changed. When I started to be able to access like the 0 to 3, 0 to 4, my whole inner world changed. Just everything changed. I started to be able to find the roots. I started to be able to see how much pain is inside of me. I started to see that actually my fake confidence or what I thought was confidence in my upbringing was actually disassociation. That I spent my whole life disassociated from my body. I was just, my early childhood, the first few years of my life, it was just too painful. I couldn't stay in my body. I just couldn't do it. So I went up to my head and I became really, really good at living from my head. I was really good at strategizing how to be cool, how to be funny, how to be smart, how to be successful, how to get the best grades with the least effort, all of this. That my life was just lived from my head. And so when you see me cry like this, it's beautiful. Like, I'm so happy I can cry and feel my body, feel the rest of my being. And this is part of what I want to talk to you about today. When I started to be able to access my early childhood, I discovered a lot of pain. I discovered so much in me that felt there's something wrong with me. I'm defective. I'm terrible. I'm a horrible human being. I'm inadequate. Everything I do is wrong. Like, you name it. I had like every form of unworthiness possible. And they came little by little, right? It didn't all hit me at once. And it was really painful. As I went from one wound to the other, it was a really painful process. I feel like I have to slow down for a second. How I was getting to this place is I was just living my life, doing my work. I was full-time giving one-on-one sessions on Skype while traveling the world for a lot of it. And anytime I noticed tension in myself, I would ask myself, where did this come from? And after a couple of years of doing that, I started really every time it was something between 0 and 3 mostly. And so this would be things like, it started off with big things. So maybe I felt anxiety coming into a session that I'm giving. Or maybe I felt anxiety when I wanted to approach a romantic interest on the street. Or maybe I felt unworthiness when I'm at a nice restaurant. Or maybe I felt frustrated when I couldn't do my work quickly enough. Or whatever the case may be. Anytime I noticed an emotion in my experience, I would ask myself, where did it come from? And over time, I got access or more sensitivity to what was going on within my emotional experience now, and then more and more sensitivity and access to where that emotion came from. And it very often came back to fear in my childhood that I couldn't express. It was like too much fear in the moment. Too much fear in the moment, so I couldn't express it, so it got stuck in my system. Or the unworthiness was too much, like the hurt of being treated disrespectfully by one of my parents or a family friend or a teacher. Or the hurt of failing at something and not being able to do something was just too much, and it just stayed in my system. And oftentimes anger, where I didn't know how to express my anger, so I just buried all my anger in my body. So for a few years, I was really committed to feeling all of this, to letting go of all the buried emotions in my body. And in the process of doing that, I found me. I found more joy, more life force, more love, more connection, compassion, more beautiful friendships that are based on intimacy and trust and respect. No more pressuring each other to do things. No more distancing. No more hiding and trying to play cool. Like, one of the big things that my unworthiness did was it made me pretend. It made me try to pretend to be happy all the time, or try to pretend to be wise or smart or whatever. And then when I'm with people, they're relating to this image that I crafted mostly unconsciously, and we're both relating from this crafted image, and we're not truly meeting each other. And I found the more I see myself, the more I see these wounds, the more I can let go of them. And the more wounds that I let go of, the more I could really see who I am. And the more I could see who I am, the more I can see who you are. The more I could see who everyone is in a deeper way. And that was really beautiful. And people started coming into my life that were so lovely and amazing. And that leads me to the next part of this. Because I just said, I started to discover who I am. So who am I? What is self-worth? And once again, I feel this like fear in my chest of speaking it. I feel a little even undeserving of speaking it. And maybe I'll say something about that for a moment. I'm not at the end of unworthiness. I've probably felt hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of forms of unworthiness. And there are still more. Almost every day, I feel or face or meet a form of unworthiness, inadequacy, self-hatred that I hadn't seen before. And I'm really lucky in that whenever one of these unworthiness is arising, like just now, I just said, I feel undeserving to share it to you. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't mind sharing that I feel undeserving, because it doesn't make me worth any less. Just because I have unworthiness in my system or undeservingness in my system, I know my worth. And if you judge me for having an emotion, that's cool. You know, I understand, that's no problem. And yeah, so when these unworthinesses arise, these feelings of inadequacy or low self-worth or everything I do is wrong, I'm really lucky in that I don't judge it, I don't push it away, it doesn't run my life, it doesn't dictate my behavior, and I'm really not afraid of these emotions. So usually when one comes up, I can feel it, meet it, see the root of it, and undo it in seconds, and then that one will never ever come back again for me. But it seems they're kind of endless, even though they're happening less often and they're less intense, less impactful. There are a lot of them. I feel like I've faced and met and felt every unworthiness in the history of humanity. Like the deepest, darkest pains, the deepest, darkest feelings of like, I'm a perpetrator and a terrible person and to blame for every bit of suffering on the planet. Yeah, I got real there. Yeah, so back to where I was going originally. After a few years of really going to the root of my emotions in my childhood, all of a sudden I started to be able to access past lives. And I didn't know anything about this. I wasn't interested in it. I never read anything about it. I never heard anything about anyone doing it. And all of a sudden I traced back an emotion and I found myself in a war. And that was really, really horrible. I'm kind of smiling in this moment, you might notice, as I say horrible, because I'm avoiding the pain of it. So rather than go into the pain of it, I'm kind of like stepping out, and I get a little smiley. So I just call myself out on that. It was really horrible to feel war and the shame, the fear, the sadness, like just so much pain. And from then on, every day, I felt a lot of past lives. I saw a lot of past lives. I entered a lot of past lives. And they were basically all horrible. Horrible. Really painful. Really, it was just perpetrator victim. Either I'm the perpetrator of the worst crimes in history or I'm the victim. Back and forth, back and forth. And yeah, maybe you didn't expect this going in this direction, but it's what happened. And over time, for about 6 months, let's say, I got really lost in it, right? I don't have any guide. I'm just doing this on my own, right? I'm doing this on my own. I don't have anyone I know that I can look to for support. I don't have nothing. And I'm basically reinventing the wheel. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying my best and trying to be really honest with myself and really like exploratory and investigative. And after 6 months, I realized I kind of got hooked on it, or what's the right word? Attached. I got very attached to going into past lives. Like a part of me felt, look how cool I am. I can go to past lives. And so I kept going there. And then I wasn't really present in my life. Yeah. And that was, let's say 2 years ago now, 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, something like that. 2 years ago. And from then on, I started to discover more and more who I am. And who I am is everything on one level. And who I am on another level is a soul. I, like you, are souls. We travel through bodies and much more, experiencing life. I could say a lot about that, but this is kind of the introduction to where I've been, so I'm not going to dive in too much. But knowing myself as a soul is beautiful, wonderful. Like, I don't have to find self-worth from ideas, like trying to convince myself that I'm smart or cool or funny or wise or anything else, or successful or wealthy. Like, none of that means anything to me. Those are just concepts, thoughts, like confused attempts to find some sort of worth. Like, who I am and who you are is completely beyond any idea that you can create with your mind. And I am beautiful and amazing and wonderful and kind and honest, but not as concepts. It's just what I am. And they are not fragile. They are not at the mercy of the day-to-day. It's just my nature. It's all of our nature. But our karma, our conditioning, our programming, our unhealed wounds gets in the way of us expressing and fully being love, authentic. So I stand, or maybe sit before you here today, knowing who I am, being who I am. And in some moments, I feel like I have to like throw in something else. Of course, in some moments, I am taken over by a program that I think is me, and I operate from that. A program meaning like a limited belief that came from my childhood or from my parents or whatever. And sometimes an emotion takes me over and I don't realize it has, and I operate from that. I'm on a journey just like you. Every day I discover something new. I discover an emotion I haven't seen, a limiting belief I haven't seen. I discover I'm not fully living from my soul in some way. So for me, it's always expanding more and more, both to living from my soul, which is what I'm here for. Maybe I'll speak on that for a moment. Notice, like, I have no idea where I'm going in this. I had planned absolutely nothing in this video other than like the 3 steps, and I'm just kind of rolling with it. So bear with me. My intention is to be authentic. And when I mean authentic, I mean authentically my soul. That whatever comes through me, every action, every movement, every sound, every word, every facial expression is coming directly through my soul. That's my intention. That's what I'm here for. And the work that I'm doing within myself and with others, sometimes, occasionally, is to help people discover who they actually are. What is authentic? Like, what's the difference between when I'm operating from some authenticity versus from a belief or an emotion or a program or something that was passed down from the ancestors? And that's a discovery for me too. You know, I am far from any endpoint, if there is an endpoint. I am just doing the best that I can to be who I am and to live from my authentic joy, love, kindness, honesty, and all of this. And as part of that, about 15 months ago, I stopped doing one-on-one sessions. It just didn't feel right. Like, I just wanted to do the work with myself, on myself. And it seems in making this video, I feel really ready to come back into action, to share with you all that I've discovered in these last 5 years. I feel nervous and excited and like a lot of energy moving through, like I'm really ready to share it with you. Particularly about self-worth. I've seen so much. I've accessed and seen and had experiences and know so much about humanity and what it means to be human and what is suffering and what mind is doing all the time. But I feel like bringing to you something really targeted that I feel like I've embodied more than anything else. And that is self-worth. That is self-worth. And it feels like I'm able to sit here in front of you and really say, I feel how do I say it? I know my worth. I know my worth. I know my worth. Not because I'm good at anything or it doesn't matter. Separate from any conditional idea, I know my worth. And I can only sit here in front of you and say that because I am so willing to see all the pieces of unworthiness inside of me. Like, I'm a spiritual warrior in a sense. Like, it doesn't matter how painful it is. It doesn't matter how confronting it is. I will go there. I want to know the truth within myself. And in the last phase, when I shared videos with you, I wasn't able to go there. I didn't know. I was presenting myself as complete and done and above you in some way. Like, I'm already made it there and you haven't. Because I didn't know any better. I was sort of doing that, putting myself above, really unconsciously. Like, I didn't want to put myself above anyone. I was trying so hard not to. But when we're not willing to face our unworthiness, when we're not willing to face our inadequacy, the effect it has is trying to find self-worth relative to others. So in order for me to be good, I have to be better than others in some way. And I don't do that anymore. Unless I do in some way that I'm not aware of, and then you could call me out on it. Yeah, that's the thing about this, you know. It's really amazing because I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So I suspect there are still many forms of unworthiness, many pieces of unworthiness still left in me. And that's okay. And maybe they're impacting my expression. And maybe what I'm sharing isn't fully authentic. It's probably not. But it's the most authentic I can be in this moment. And I sit here in front of you really with the commitment to you and to myself to be honest. To be honest with myself and with you and with the world about whatever moves through me. That I am not perfect. I am not done. I am not above you. We're all just following whatever we can in the moment, whether it's our emotions, our intuition, our soul, whatever. We're just doing the best we can and kind of like winging it. I'm winging it. And I love doing that. I love doing that. So I was winging it on this call or this video, this recording. And let me just feel if I said everything that needs to be said. Yeah, I feel really complete. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you. I feel happy that you know me better. I feel hopeful that it was helpful for you in some way. And I really, really look forward to sharing more with you. See you soon. Bye.